So let me just read you the first 8 verses of chapter 19 of Exodus. On the first day of the 3rd month, after the Israelites left Egypt, on that very day they came to the desert of Sinai. After they set out from Rephidim, they entered the desert of Sinai, and Israel camped there in the desert in front of the mountain. Then Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain and said, "This is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob and what you are to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now if you obey me and fully keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites." So Moses went back and summoned the elders of the people and set before them all the words the Lord had commanded him to speak. The people all responded together, "We will do everything the Lord has said." So Moses brought their answer back to the Lord. Let's stop right there. I said the history and order of grace. And the reason I'm saying that is because the first couple of verses, I think, tell us something about the history. Put it this way. And by the way, Alec Motyer wrote a Bible. It's in the series The Bible Speaks Today, a kind of commentary on Exodus. Since we're here to do Bible exposition and Bible study, I would recommend that book. It's a tremendous book. You couldn't do any better at understanding the book of Exodus, which is a long and actually very complicated book. And Alec Motyer points out something in these first 2 verses that you wouldn't think of unless you were a biblical scholar who keeps a map in his head, I guess, as he's reading. He says, God and Moses basically said to the Israelites, "Trust us. We're going to take you to the promised land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to Palestine." And the children of Israel trusted them. And now, please note, Motyer points out, that Sinai was further away from the promised land than Egypt. It was actually south. If you know how the Sinai Peninsula goes, it was further away. So God led them in the opposite direction almost from where he said he was going to lead them. And they were supposed to go to a land flowing with milk and honey. And yet, it even says so right there. He takes them into a desert, and it was a mountainous desert. It was a land with far worse than Egypt. In other words, he said, "I'm going to take you over here." So he took them to a place that was farther from there than Egypt was, and worse than Egypt. And that's where he meets them. And it is often so. You give your life to Jesus. You give your life to the Lord. You say, "I'm putting everything in your hands. I'm trusting you with my whole life," and just watch things go downhill from there. Weeks later, months later, a couple years later, you say, "What happened? I gave myself to him and I trusted him, and everything's getting worse and worse." And if you admit it, you're farther away from the things you hoped God was going to be giving you. I'm giving him everything. Surely he could give me this and this and this, if he wants to. And of course, God seems to be taking you in an opposite direction. So often the history of grace in our lives follows this.